Okay, I think we're actually going to get started for those who are on and for those who came on right on time. We're going to keep going, and then when people join in, they'll just join in when they can. So first of all, welcome to JF&CS Career Services, our virtual career services, and welcome to our virtual resume workshop. My name is Shelley Miller, and I'm the Career Services Manager for JF&CS. And we welcome you in these unprecedented times, even though we've been kind of doing this for just 3 months now. I think it's been March to April, May, June. It's been 3 months for me, actually, since I've been home and working out of my home. So hopefully in the next hour, you'll gain some valuable knowledge about how to create or enhance your resume and your cover letter. So I want to tell you a little bit about JF&CS before we get going and before we get moving. Hopefully my internet is going to be stable enough. I keep getting these messages that say that it's not so stable, but hopefully we'll be able to move forward. Anyway, a little bit about JF&CS. Our goal as a social service agency is to really build a community of empowered lives, and we make hope and opportunity happen. And we at JF&CS offer many different programs and resources. We offer programs in the field of aging and older adults, career support, obviously dentistry with our Ben Mazel Dental Clinic, mental health, which has been a very large part of our services throughout this whole COVID-19, and our intellectual and development disabilities, and our need-based support services. So right now we really have seen an uptick of emergency assistance being needed by people, by food being needed by people. And I want you to know that we do have those services offered to us and offered to you. We've been granted some wonderful grants in the last few months to help with emergency assistance. So I encourage you to reach out and look at us online at www.jfcsatl.org, and please call if you do need any additional services. I want to go through a little bit of housekeeping before we do move forward. And today's workshop is scheduled to last approximately about an hour, including the question and answer. And as I said before, for some of you, all participants will be muted to enable me to present without interruption. And some of you, I do recognize the names from other workshops. Actually, some of you I think I've even worked with on one-on-one. So I welcome those who are new to JF&CS and to our services. But if you have a resume, I ask that you please follow along with the presentation with your resume at hand. As well, I sent out a resume to you, with the exception of the one person that just registered a few minutes ago. But there was a resume that I sent out as an attachment. It was Trisha Gordon, and I asked that you please, if you don't have your own resume, to kind of just follow along with that, because it'll sort of help us when we're working through the resume. You'll have a better idea to be able to follow. Questions are welcome, absolutely, during the session. We're going to use the chat function, which will be monitored, and I will be doing my best as I go along to monitor that. But at certain points, I'm going to also take questions. If time does run out, hopefully my internet will be okay here. If time does run out, I'll follow up with email to respond to questions that do not get addressed during the session. And you were all emailed, and you will be emailed again, a link to a Surveymonkey demographic survey. And I'm pleased asking you to complete that survey. Now, if you had filled out that survey, I know there's a few that have been on calls before. If you have filled out the survey, you don't need to fill it out again. But I do please ask that you have not to fill that out. We are 100% grant funded at Career Services, with Career Services at JF&CS. So we collect demographic information just to go back to the funder and say, this is how many people we've helped. This is how many people in this demographic category we've helped. So please, if you could fill that out for us. And this PowerPoint presentation will be available, and I'll email it to you once you complete the demographic survey. I can tell who's completed the survey. So I will send you the deck once you fill out that survey after we're done today. Okay, so I am going to actually start out by launching a poll. So the poll that I'm launching asks, let's see if this is going to come up, and I've launched the poll. And the question is, how much time do hiring managers or recruiters spend looking at individual resumes? So I want you to go ahead and click on it and then submit. And I am going to take it from here. I can tell how many people are on the call, and I will kind of give it a little bit of time. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, give it a little bit. Okay. Anyone else going to log in? Okay, I'm gonna end the poll. Let's see if this goes up. Did it end? I'm gonna share the results. My computer must be slow. My internet must be a little bit slow. Okay, there are the results. So it looks like half of you thought that it's 40 seconds, and some of you thought the 8 seconds, the 1 minute. So it was kind of split between 8 seconds, 1 minute, and 40 seconds. So I'm gonna stop sharing my results. I'm gonna close that, move back to this, and let you know that the answer is 8 seconds. That is how long a potential employer will spend looking at your resume. It's pretty daunting. It's pretty unbelievable that you have spent how much time preparing your resume and you get 8 seconds. That's all you get. From there, you're either going to go into a rejection pile or you're going to go into a review later pile. So I'm just going to kind of review it later. So the big takeaway here is your resume needs to be clear and concise. So really, there is not one right way to, there is not one right way to write a resume. If your resume is getting results, and what are results? Results are getting you interviews, getting you the callbacks. So if you're getting the interviews, then it's working for you. So I would never work with a client, and if they say, yeah, I'm getting interviews, but I'm not getting job offers, well, it's probably not your resume, it's probably your interviewing style. So if you're getting hits, if you're getting the interview, then it's working for you. If not, you need to change it up. So how do you change it up? Really, your resume has but 2 purposes. It needs to get your foot in the door, means it needs to get you the interview, and it's an agenda for your interview. So before we move on, any questions, anything before we start getting into the meat of things? And you can go ahead and use that chat function, and I'll do my best to answer. Okay, I'm going to go on actually to the what we consider to be the resume checklists. Asking you at this point to follow along either with that Tricia resume that I sent or with your own resume. So I'm going to start with the checklist, which is the structure and the format of your resume. Then I'm going to take a deeper dive into a couple sections of your resume. So to start out with the layout and the formatting of your resume. So is your resume the appropriate length? We suggest no more than 2 pages. Again, because if it's 2 pages, they aren't going to read it. You only have 8 seconds. You're clearly not going to have 3 or 4 pages on your resume. You do not need to try to cram it all into one little page on your resume. 2 is just fine. So make sure that, and this is pretty much common sense, that your name and your page numbers are included on the second page. If it gets separated, if it's a hard copy, it could get separated. So is the font easy to read, and is it business appropriate? So we suggest that you avoid a Times New Roman because of the serifs, the little swoopies at the end. So use something like a Calibri or an Arial, something that's easy to read. Is it 10-point? Is your font 10-point minimum? Okay, 12-point maximum. That's where we sort of the sweet spot is the audio is poor. I know, I think it's has to do with my computer. We'll have to do the best that I can. I apologize if this is that way. I don't know how if I can make it any, let me, oops. Not sure that I can make it any better. Back to the 11 point. So I was actually reading an article last night about this, and I was reading that when you have a resume that's over the 12 point, it actually looks elementary. It looks like it's not very professional. So if you have it too small, you can't read it. And I've clearly seen people who have used margins that are real small and have fonts that are very small to try to cram it into that one page. So use the 11. 11 point is probably a good one. In common sense, are your headings and statements evenly spaced? Verb tense is very important. If you are in a current position and you are still at that position, use current tense. So you make sure that if you are in previous positions, you no longer work there, use past tense. It can be very confusing for a potential employer to look at your resume and go, well, does this person still work there? Do they not work there anymore? So make sure the ED goes on the end of, you created ED at the end of things if you're no longer in the job. If you're currently in the job, use the present tense. So all of your experiences, which is all of your work experience, needs to be in reverse chronological order. Most recent goes first. So have you checked with your spelling, your grammar, and your punctuation? Make sure you start at the top of the resume. I was working with a client who actually kept saying, well, I'm not getting any hits, not getting any information. As it turned out, she had a digit wrong in her phone number. So you have to really start proofing from the top. Have someone else proof it for you. I was just proofing someone's resume last week, and they had a word completely. It changed actually the meaning of what she was trying to say. So make sure that you do proof. Use your capital letters at the right time. You make sure your abbreviations are correct. Watch your pronouns. Take the words like I or me or my out of your resume. Instead of saying something like I created a training manual, just say created training manual. So take out those pronouns. Make sure, again, it's easy to read. You have sufficient white space. Okay, continuing on with the resume checklist at the header. So the header is right at the top where your name is at the top of the page. Make sure it's right there. Photos. Pictures do not belong on your resume. I've clearly seen resumes that take up large real estate and then there's a photo. It's very distracting. So just save that for LinkedIn. Don't put that on your resume. Make sure that things stand out without being too big, obviously not over 18 point. I mean, don't try to fill up the page and have your name and your header really huge. Just make it proportional. So are your city, your state, your phone number, and email there, and they easy to read? So now this is something that's very important, and this has changed over the years. Do not include your street address on your resume. Oh, my poor internet connection here. Do not include your street address for two reasons. One is for safety. Make sure that you don't really want anyone knowing where you live. So you don't want someone to know that you live in the particular street in Brookhaven and you live up and coming. Okay, for safety reasons. The second reason is, suppose that you're applying for a job in Cumming and you live in Brookhaven. A potential employer may think, boy, that's really a far way that they're going to have to travel. They're going to be late every day. I just know it. So to avoid that, let you make the decision. Maybe you decide that you don't mind commutes, or you know that you will leave in enough time and give yourself enough time. You don't want to be counted out for a job just because of where you live. So put words instead of the city and the street address where you live, just put Greater Atlanta or Metro Atlanta area. Is your voicemail appropriate? First of all, is your voicemail set up on your phone? Now, I clearly called clients and it's either, number one, it could be full or it's not appropriate. Let's say that you have a side business, you're a dog walker on the side.
Make sure that your voicemail for that particular number you have is appropriate for jobs you're looking for. Someone may think, well, they already have a job. They don't need a job. Or this is confusing to me. Is this a business phone? You can always get a Google number. You can and have that. You can send it right to your cell phone. So you can have 2 numbers on that cell phone. Is your email professional or appropriate? So nokittylovers.com. Make sure that it's absolutely appropriate. Does your email show your age? So my 96-year-old dad has an email domain that is Mindspring. So that kind of shows our age. So make sure you have like a Yahoo or a Gmail is probably the best. Comcast is fine. AIM is not. So make sure that you've got one that's appropriate. We have a trouble with our age anyway, sometimes when we're looking for jobs. So make sure that it's age appropriate. Did I include my LinkedIn URL? Absolutely, employers will look you up on LinkedIn. It's very important that you put LinkedIn on your URL. Okay, moving on to professional summary or summary statement. And you'll see on either Trisha's resume or on your own resume, that is that little strip, kind of belongs right under your header. It's a snapshot of who you are and what you have to offer. It includes core competencies and skills, both your hard skills and your soft skills. So it includes soft skills that could be an active listener, critical thinker, team player, or you could be fluent in Spanish as a hard skill. You could be an Excel spreadsheet expert. So those are hard skills. The most important thing about your professional summary and your summary statement is it needs to be specific to the job you're applying for. And you're going to hear me say that a number of times. It has to be specific to the job you're applying for. Does it complement the job and the job description? So keep that in mind. This is one of those places that we're going to dive deeper into once I get through the resume checklist. Okay, I'm going to continue on with the checklist, and I'm going to move to your experience, your professional experience, internship, contract, volunteer, whatever your experience is can go in that section. So first, it needs to include the title, the name of the employer or the organization, and the date you were employed. Now, this is something that's very important. Put your years only. Do not include months. So your months would be, you work from June 2018 to March of 2020. Just take out the June and the March. That also gets very distracting, and employers will then count and go, okay, she worked from June, July, August, September. It doesn't matter if you were there 8 months, if you were there 6 months, if you were there 4 months. They're not going to be that specific. Now, I understand when you're filling out an application online, you will probably have to put that information in, but on your resume, it's years only. Now, an exception to that would be like new grads. If you had an internship or a summer job, but if you had a summer job, I was just looking at a new grad's resume, and she had worked at the store, and it literally said December 2019 till January of 2020. That is 1 month. And I said, did you really only work there for 1 month? And she said, oh no, I worked there during the summers and I worked there during the breaks I was home. So if that was a 4-year period, put the 4 years in there. And that is something you can explain in a resume, because clearly I thought she was there a month, and I thought, well, that doesn't show longevity in a job. So use your common sense and look at it from an employer's standpoint when they're looking at your resume. Make sure that you include the city and state in all the positions that you're applying for. Okay, was this a position that was contract? I was actually working with a client a few months ago, and she had a bunch of positions, and they were over about a 2 or 3 year period. And I thought, boy, does this person jump from job to job? And I asked the question, I said, it doesn't look like you've been at a job for very long. And she said, oh, they were all contract positions. Specify that. An employer is not going to look at that, not going to know that unless you put that down. So if you look at it, if you have a resume and an employer is looking and they see contract, they'll go, oh, okay, she was only employed for that amount of time, and then she moved on to another contract position. All right, you need to have a brief, just a 1 to 2 sentence description of the role, of your duties. See under Trisha's resume, under that first experience as she was a store manager, it said that she recruit, train, and manage 15-member staff. That is just a little snapshot of what she did. And then she also had direct key operational functions, including sales forecasting, vendor management, and store design. So they're just little tidbits, a little brief 1 or 2 sentences on the description of the role. Then the next important, and I'm going to take a deeper dive into this, is do you have appropriate 3 to 4 accomplishments? These are bullet points for each job. So accomplishments are very important because an employer wants to know if you could do, if you were successful in one job, you could clearly be successful for them in another job. So do my bullet points demonstrate accomplishments versus duties and tasks? Can they be quantified? Do they include action verbs that you created, you designed, you developed? Do they show accomplishments, and do they demonstrate the use of key skills that I have? If you're a team player, you need to say that you worked with a team or created a team that was successful in generating website traffic. So and I'm going to dive deeper into these accomplishments and show you how to create those. But accomplishments are a very important part of each job experience that you have. So is my work history on my resume, moving on to the next one, is my work history limited to the last 10 to 15 years? So if it's more than 10 years old and you were in this position a long time ago, 10 years ago, just list the company and the years that you were there. You don't need to go into the job description, duties, and you do not need to put the accomplishments. Now, if you were there over 15 years ago, for instance, when I graduated college, how many years ago? I'm not going to put my first job out of college on there because what it's doing is it's showing your age. It's not relevant anymore. When we started out, we didn't have computers. So I'm clearly not going to put any of that information in my resume. So over 15 years, unless you are still in that position. If you've been in a position for 20, 30 years, yes, obviously you're going to include that in your experience. That's going to be right up at the top because you're still in that job. But if you are no longer in that job and it's over 15 years, remove it from your resume. Okay. The next page is just a list of action verbs to help you with your accomplishments. Okay, we're going to move on to the education and certifications part. I will answer that question when we get down to the questions part when I'm done with this. So does my education state the institution, the location, the degree that you have? So yes, that needs to be on there. You need to, if your degree is, you need to put the years you graduated on there. If you graduated in the last 5 years or less, put that on there. I'm clearly not going to put on my resume that I graduated 20, 30 years ago. Nope, I'm not going to put it. So if it's in the last 5 years, yes, you can put it on there. Let's say you didn't earn a degree. You can still say that but you took studies in it, but you actually never actually learned the degree or earned the degree. So you can list things like studies in and put those classes on there because you clearly went to school, but maybe you didn't get the degree. Did I graduate with honors? Make sure that you put that information in there. Do you include your GPA? Really for new grads only. And if you were a new grad and it was over a 3.5, you can put it on there. But not if you're not a new grad within the last couple of years, and not if it wasn't over a 3.5, it's not important, and it may deter from your resume. Did you have any other honors? Were you included in any scholarships or study abroad program? Include that in your education section for new grads. If you have more than one degree, list those in reverse chronological order. Do not list your high school diploma on here. I've clearly seen that. People have put their high school. You're not going to have a college degree without have graduating from high school. So you don't need to put that on there. Okay, your professional organizations and associations. This is a section that today, in today's environment, is really important. It's really important because employers are going to ask you, what have you been doing during COVID? What have you been doing during this pandemic? You may not have had a job. You haven't been real successful in looking for that job, but you can add on your resume that you've been participating in specific organizations that will help better you in a specific job that you're looking at or a specific job that you're applying for. So professional organizations, absolutely to put those on your resume, absolutely. If you've held leadership positions, put that down as well. So also, I know for myself, when I went back to work after my kids went to school, I had a lot of volunteer experience, but I held leadership roles in those. So put that down as well. They were there. That was really what the most important part of my experience was. Okay, so questions. Let's see what we got here. In summary, my resume currently says 20+ years experience. Is that strange if I only list employment history starting in 2003? No, it's not, because you're showing you have expertise in that field, but your work history itself, you do not need to put it in your employment work history. But yes, you can list it in your summary statement. That's fine. Are there any other questions before we move on? Let me let you. Okay. Okay, references. So people always ask, should I include my references in the with my resume when I send them? I would create those references on a separate document, and don't send them unless you're do not send your references with your resume unless you're specifically asked to do that. Convert your resume to a PDF before sending so you don't lose the formatting of it, because I know that that can really be an issue. So save it to a PDF, and it's going to be easier for people to read. And you've spent so much time creating it that you don't really want that formatting to get out of sync, because then it looks like you didn't create it correctly. Okay, I'm going to actually go ahead and we're going to launch another poll before we move on. And I'm going to go to, I'm going to launch my poll. So if you guys see this, and the question being, what is the most important section on your resume? So go ahead and what you think is the most important section on your resume. And hopefully I didn't tell you this already, but yeah, I guess I, all right. Okay, get a few more. Okay, I think I'm going to end that poll. I'm going to share the results. Okay, 63% of you said the summary statement and skills. Absolutely. That is the most important part. That is the most important part of your resume. So I'm going to stop sharing that and go back to what we consider to be the 80-20 rule. Okay, this is the part that people just hear some sighs, but you can't have just one resume for every job you're applying for. 80% of your resume will stay the same and 20% will change. So the 20% that will change is this summary statement at the top. So with many companies and organizations, and I'm sure you've gone through this before, you've experienced this before, they use the applicant tracking systems. So what happens is an employer will put into the computer system a job description of what the requirements and what they're looking for the qualifications and the requirements they want for a specific person, in a specific job that they are posting. What happens is your resume will go into this applicant tracking system and try to match the qualifications and the requirements that they're looking for. So if you don't match what they've inputted into the computer, your resume is going to get rejected. So it's critical that your resume contains the skills and experience an employer is looking for. So the top part of the first page of your resume, the summary statement and core competencies or skills, is the most important part. It's the prime real estate. This is the 20% that will change. It's not an objective. I remember when I was applying for jobs right out of college, it was an objective. It was about what I wanted. Well, it's no longer about what you want. It's about what you can offer to an employer. It's an excellent place to showcase who you are and what you have to offer. This is what employers are looking for. So each resume will need to be tailored to relate to that particular job you are applying. This is where looking at job descriptions to see what requirements and qualifications an employer is looking for is so important. We always tell our clients, go look through some job descriptions. What kind of job do you want? Spend some time on Indeed or LinkedIn. Indeed isn't a very good place to actually apply for that job, but look through job descriptions. Look at what you want to do. Look for the skills. Look for the core competencies that they're looking for, the qualifications. So when you are creating that top part of your resume, you will match what they are looking for. Your summary statement, part of the 20% that changes. So what it is your professional summary should be 2 to 3 sentences in length and describe who you are, what you have to offer, again, as it relates to the job you're applying for. Again, it'll be customized for each specific job. You need to change the sentences to relate to that specific experience. So it should include the overall level of expertise in the profession and the industry. So as Nikki, as you asked, yes, you can say that you've got 20 years experience, and you'll see in my example on the bottom how I kind of said that. It needs to include the area of expertise or your competency that you want to emphasize, your personal attributes that relate to the role that's important to the role or the company, and the title of who you are. So as an example, on the bottom here, I've written an innovative operations executive with over 10 years proven success leading 250 associates, streamlining business processes, and managing multiple projects delivered on time and within budget. Exceptional communication skills and the ability to develop high-performance teams. So that is who I am and what I have to offer as it pertains to the particular job I'm applying for. We're going to move on. Core competencies and skills. This can go underneath that sentence. It can be incorporated within that sentence. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to. There we go. Okay. This list should not just contain what you can do, but the most important 8 or 9 skills that you have that match the skills of the job you're applying. This will increase the chance of surviving that applicant tracking system. Put it under the section under your summary statement. So core competencies are a group of skills, abilities, and experience that add value to what you've done. By selecting your skills and strengths that the employer needs, you're showing you can meet the needs of the employer and the job. So your competencies are brief little skills. They're little action phrases. So I have some examples here. Customer service, analytical thinker, leadership skills, budget forecasting. So these are just examples of core competencies. Okay, and I'm going to give you a suggestion on how you can create a master profile to make tailoring your resume, this 20% that needs to change, easy or easier. So again, I'm sorry, I keep repeating it, but it's so important. It's critical that when applying for a job that you tailor that resume to relate to the particular job. Although it can seem daunting, it can be fairly simple by creating what we call a master profile of your skills and abilities. So what that would be would, on your master skills would be that profile. Really, we suggest have two parts to it. So it's going to be a separate document that you create and you hold somewhere on your computer somewhere. It can be on a separate piece of paper. It can be in a notebook, however you create your notes and it's comfortable for you. So number one, the first section is going to be the summary, the professional summary and summary statements. So we suggest that you have about 6 to 10 sentences that talk about you and highlight the aspects of your skills and your ability. You're just going to list them. So from there, you can select 1 or 2 sentences that closely relates to the job you're applying for. So it relates to that job description, and that's how you would create your statement. So as the more jobs that you apply for, you're going to have more statements. So you're going to keep adding. So you hopefully get to 6 or 10. So when you find a job, you already have those statements. You're just going to kind of swap them in, swap them out. Also, the same thing goes for core competencies or skills. List all the skills you have and all the core competencies. Look at performance evaluations that you have had. Look at what people say about you. Look at your personality qualities that you have. Those are good places to start. Learn what core competencies are important to the jobs you're interested in, again, by reading job descriptions. But don't only read the ones you're qualified for. Read the ones at a higher level and a lower level. And you're going to quickly begin to see the skills that employers are interested in for particular jobs and add those to your list. So you've got now some sentences and you've got some core competencies. So when you go through and you swap out this top 20% of your resume, it won't be so daunting because you already have a list started. And you won't have to go back and remember what you have. Okay, anything else before we move on to accomplishments? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to move on to the accomplishment part of the resume. And this is the part that is going under each experience that you have. So when we develop resumes through JF&CS, through our careers department, we use accomplishment-based resumes. And they're actually based on the behavioral style theory that past performance is a good indicator of future performance. So if you can do it successfully in one place, you can do it successfully in another place. So when an employer looks at their resume, they're going to go, look at this person really had some good experience and I see they were successful in the jobs that they had. So they will probably be more likely to be successful for me. So if I'm looking at 2 resumes and I see a lot of accomplishments on one resume, but I don't see any, all I see is a list of duties and daily duties that a person is doing, I would take the person with the more accomplishments. So in the experience section, professional, contract, volunteer, whatever it is, these are kind of little snippets, little bullet points of what you've done. So they're examples of how you performed in the past, what you've accomplished, how effective you've been. They're not a list of tasks or duties. They're a list of accomplishments. So you can highlight those in easy to read small sentences. They need to be specific. They need to be detailed. They need to use action verbs in the appropriate tenses, present or past. They also need to illustrate transferable skills. Skills you may do now, you did, that are transferable to another job. You always hear recruiters talk about transferable skills. Skills, teamworking, active listener, transferable skills, skills that you've done before that you can do for a new employer. Okay, so moving on. Accomplishments are really the key to getting noticed. They're part of the professional experience. They're part of the 80% that doesn't change from resume to resume. So your experience is your experience, is your experience. It can't change. It was what it was, it is what it is. But you can add and you can enhance it by putting these accomplishments within it. So accomplishments are either personal job-related achievements that you're proud of, that they're examples of things you've done independently, and that you've done as a member of a team. We suggest using what we call the STAR format to create accomplishment statements. So first start with a STAR story, kind of a long written story, and then it's shortened into a clear, concise STAR statement. So what it would be, and I'll kind of give you an example here in the next two slides to show you exactly kind of what I mean. So we talk about, on a piece of paper, take sometimes, this can be a little bit difficult when you are first starting out and you're not real comfortable with it, but practice, practice, practice. So you start out with a situation and you're briefly going to explain the background of a situation, okay? So something that you were asked to do, some situation you were asked to change, something that happened in your past professional experience. Then you're gonna describe your tasks that you're looking to achieve. So you're gonna take that experience, what the situation was, and what was the task you're trying to achieve. Then you're gonna describe the actions you took to resolve the situation and the task. And then you're gonna describe the results. So you're gonna summarize what you accomplished into a statement. So these statements can be used on your resume, and they're also can be used during a job interview. So if you've been in a job interview and a potential employer will say, so tell me about a situation when there was a conflict and you had to resolve it. Tell me about a situation that you were put on a team to resolve a particular problem, to create something new. This is a STAR story. This is a STAR statement that you need to create and have ready. Let me show you what I mean by an entire situation. Okay, here's an example of an accomplishment using the STAR format. So I'm just going to read the situation so you get a feel for what I mean. So when I began work as a software developer, it was difficult to understand all of my duties and begin working effectively as part of a team. So one of my responsibilities was to train the other developers that were being hired. So the action I took was that I realized I needed to create a training manual that detailed all the duties for the position and specific instructions on how to carry out those duties. I knew this would help in my ability to train others, developers, as well as to make their job easier coming into a new company. I created a manual with sections for each job responsibility. I included concrete examples for each particular duty. I made copies of it for each new software developer, as well as supervising staff. Result: when the new software developers arrived, they were impressed with the detail of the new duties. It also cut down on training time and in turn increased productivity. So that's my story. That's my STAR story. And how do I make it into a statement? So the statement itself would be develop training manual for software developers, which reduced new staff training period, increased productivity, and reduced instance of reoccurring problems. So that's what I mean by taking your story, putting it in your accomplishments. So we do suggest that there's certain ways that you can strengthen your accomplishments. So one of those ways is, hopefully this will switch, one of those ways is to say it with numbers. So these are all little STAR statements. They don't have to be that STAR statement that I had at the bottom of that previous page. They can be short little snippets. So you won 3 project management awards. You trained and supervised staff of 25. Recruited 18 staff members in 3 weeks to be ready for museum's grand opening. You're saying it with numbers. Saying it with percentages. Now, sometimes you can't always say it with percentages, but you had excellent customer relation skills, which resulted in 39% increase in sales. Resolve customer relation issues. increasing customer satisfaction by 8%. Sometimes you're going to have to figure out what the percents are. If you're within reason, it's okay. I don't think anyone's going to ask you unless you increased it by, 99%. You just have to be realistic about what you're saying. We don't want you to lie in your resume, absolutely not, but you can, just be within reason. Say it with dollar amounts. You average $34,000 in sales per month. So we suggest that you create 10 to 15 star statements to use on your resume and during interviews. This is, again, part of the master profile. So if you went through a particular job and you had all your accomplishments listed, you can then go pick and choose. Let's say that you were applying for a sales job and you have your experiences. I would suggest that you concentrate on maybe some of the sales numbers that you have. Sales percentages that you have. So you can pick and choose on your resume. Okay. Before I move on to that, any questions that you guys have? Any questions, anything through the chat that is a question, you didn't understand something, you want me to go back? Wait a second. Okay, the next slide is the Tricia Gordon resume. So it's the resume that I sent to you, and you can use this as an example when you are creating your own resume. We found this format to be quite successful for our. Okay, we're done with resumes, and I'm going to move on to cover letters. Cover letter are important. And the question I get all the time is, do I really need a cover letter? Yes, recruiters do read cover letters. And let me tell you why. Because the resume is all about you. The cover letter allows you to focus on the employer and their needs by telling about the skills and experience you have that meet or exceed the requirements of the job you're applying for. So that's why it's important when you're writing your cover letter to go back to that job description and look to see what the employer is focusing on, what they want your skills and your experience to have to relate to the job. So yes, send a resume with every cover letter. With every resume. You can mail it, fax it, email it, however they're requesting it. Make sure that you address it, if you can, to someone, to a particular name. If not, you can do the hiring manager. Keep it concise, keep it short, really no more than 3 paragraphs. That opening paragraph needs to refer to the ad or to the job description, or mention the name of the person that referred you. Indicate why you're writing, okay? I'm going to give you a couple examples in a minute. The second part, that second paragraph, it's a concise overview of your skills as to how they match the job description. And in conclusion, you want to indicate that when you will follow up with them, how you can be contacted. And it's a good place on this last paragraph to express how interested you are in the position, and you hope that you will get an opportunity to meet with them to further explain how you could add value to their company. Okay, I've got 2 examples in the deck here. And I'm just going to show you this one, just with that first paragraph here. It's listing the name of the company and the person and such, and it's talking about the organization and how you can relate to that organization. That second paragraph talks about skills and strengths and experience. The last paragraph talks about how you can be looking forward to being contacted and you can add value. But it's the second sample letter that I want to concentrate on. And what this is this is a letter that we've suggested for people, and it's really, really worked well for a lot of our clients. So the first part of it is you're responding here. I'm responding to a particular ad that you saw. You can tell how old this example is by looking at an advertisement in the Wall Street Journal. Who applies for jobs to the newspaper anymore? But what it does is it actually shows how your how your qualifications match the requirements. It actually has the words requirements, meaning the requirements from the job description, and my qualifications. So it basically just pulled things right out from the job description and matched them to can match them to particular things that were in these are part of your accomplishments. These are from your accomplishment statements. These are particular sentences from your professional summary. So you've pulled them right from your master profile that you have. And then that last paragraph, it could be explained a little bit more, but you look forward to further discussions. So those are two examples that have really worked well for a lot of our clients. Any questions on cover letters in particular? Okay, so what are my next steps? What do I do from here? What do I do from here? It's always a question, because there's a lot of information that's presented in the hour. But number one, review job descriptions of jobs that may interest you. We always start out a lot of times with our clients and we'll say, tell me what it is that you'd like to do. And people say, oh, I'll do anything. Well, would you work on the chicken farm in northern Georgia? Maybe not. So look at particular job descriptions of jobs that interest you. Start to look for skills and qualifications that employers are looking at, and start thinking about yourself. So when you start looking through these job descriptions, start to build your master profile, which will include your summary statements and your list of skills and core competencies. So start listing things that you've accomplished. Start listing skills that you have. Then move forward and create those accomplishment statements using that STAR format, using the bullet points for your experience section of your resume. Come up with as many statements as possible as that you can, but by using the format that we've suggested. Update your resume so it's ready to be tailored for each position you're applying for. So you're going to have a format and a structure that you're going to use for every single job you're applying for, but you're going to swap things in and out. Create a template for cover letters so you can tailor it for each position. So these are really what your next steps are. So before we kind of end and move forward from here, are there any questions, anything I didn't cover that someone may have some questions about? Kind of that last, before we really wrap up. Either none of you can hear me, or I've answered all of your questions. But are there any other questions that we have before we kind of wrap up here? So the question would be, and you can put it in the chat, did you learn something new today? Was this helpful to you when you're creating your resumes? Anybody would like to answer that? Anything, was this helpful? Did you learn something new? No? All right. Okay, so if there are no other, okay, so thank you, Nikki, for saying I'll incorporate our bullet points instead of the larger narratives. And I would absolutely agree with that, because when you have so much narratives, remember, go back to that first part of 8 seconds. If you're only getting 8 seconds, your narratives aren't going to be read. There need to be short, concise, clear little bullet points. Okay, so I want to thank you for participating in this workshop. Good, creating a master profile, great. I want to thank you for participating. And we've got 2 other workshops that are part of our career series. We've tried to now that we've been doing this for a bit, try to put these in order, sort of in job search first and going on to resumes and then moving into LinkedIn. And I know some of you have been on actually all of them, and some of you are doing them in different orders. But we hope to see you again, and all of these workshops are listed on our website and same place that you registered. And again, you're going to be emailed after we're done with this a link to the Surveymonkey. So I'm asking that you please complete that survey. We do not share any of this information, and our career service is 100% grant funded. As I said, the PowerPoint presentation will be available and emailed to you once you complete the survey. And one of the questions was, can you set an appointment with me? That would be helpful. Yes, what you can do is you can email me. You can actually email me. My email address is smiller@jfcsatl.org. And you can email me. We can have a conversation. I'll be happy to help as much as I can. That would absolutely be able to do that. But again, thank you for participating and enjoy your day, and we hope to see you again. Yeah, I know. I apologize for that connection. It's something to do with, I don't know if it's our internet. I've actually tried, and I've talked to AT&T about it, and I apologize for that. So hopefully you've picked up as much as you can. If you have any other questions or anything, Melanie, you can always give me a call. But thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.